Okay, so we got to get to it. It's Apple Intelligence time. So we're going to break this down into two categories. We're going to talk about the features. Then we're going to talk about the feelings.
The feelings, yeah.
So just let us talk about the features first, all right? Just give us some
All
grace, talk about the features, and then we'll talk about everything a selection of things that could come from these features. So, first off, I respect the bravado of the name Apple Intelligence.
Yep.
Why not? I think that's great. Like, go for it. Live your best
AI.
lives. The thing that
Yeah,
I find
do it.
funny about this is they have broken away from using the Apple logo just so they can hit the pun of AI, right? Like, because they always have Apple logo thing when it's called Apple something, right? But here it says Apple, spelled out Apple, because then you get the AI. And again, I'm just like, you know what? Great. Like, yes, do it. Why not? I think it's hilarious. They're like, in this one instance, they're like, no, we're not going to use the Apple logo because Apple logo doesn't start with A. Apple logo starts with Apple. So we need it to say A and then I. And I think that's very, very funny.
Yeah, I guess I should give a warning here, which is there's been some confusion, and some of this is Apple's fault. Everything we talk about here, unless we very specifically specify otherwise, is using Apple's machine learning models. There is a partnership that was announced. The ability, I would even phrase it more broadly, the ability for other machine learning, other AI systems to be called by the system in specific instances with your approval is first turned off by default. And second, if you turn it on, you get these warnings. Those are where you will see, for example, ChatGPT, which is the first announced partner. Although, Craig Federighi said the name Google Gemini on stage in a post-event thing for press, and then said, but we've got nothing to announce, which is like, okay, I don't know how to reach that. But so I've seen a lot of people are like, oh, OpenAI is powering all of Apple's stuff. It's not. It's really, really not. So just to be crystal clear here, unless we say that's OpenAI, it's not. It's not. This is Apple building its own stuff, and they've got their own models, and they're running on their own hardware and their own processors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, we will make it simple. The very last set of features we will talk about is the ChatGPT thing. So until we get to that, this is all Apple stuff.
All Apple.
Including their own writing tools. So this is a selection of transforming text stuff, which goes from the ability of taking your own text and changing its tone and changing its length to some more
grammar.
Basic generation of text that they're doing with Apple Intelligence. But it seems like by and large, it's about taking something you've written and summarizing it or changing its tone.
A lot of what's going on in this and in other stuff like mail messages, it's changing what you've done using your text as the foundation. So it might be as simple as a grammar check with suggestions, which is a thing that they offer. It's a writing checker. It's like Grammarly, basically. Or make this more professional. But again, it's using your text as the basis from it. So it's going to sound a lot like you because your text is the input. It's not sort of a random input. So yeah, there's a lot of transformation going on here. I think people will find some of this stuff valuable, probably more of it. Like for me, I'm like, oh, well, letting people get a quick grammar check that's built into the OS is probably a smart thing. And it's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, their example was very funny because it was like super unprofessional cover letter. And they're like, well, let's make this a little more professional, where it would have been like a wise, a mentor saying, maybe don't phrase it this way. And that's basically what the writing tool does. Notifications.
I've received quite a lot of love. I'm excited about this. They try to surface priority messages based on their context and content. If you get a lot of notifications from a specific app, like a group chat, say an iMessage, it will try to summarize what's going on inside of those notifications. This is great. And then also a new focus mode called Reduce Interruptions that tries to highlight just the most important notifications. All of this is great. I love this. Notifications will always be a problem. I think maybe the only way we can ever try to deal with them is having AI deal with it for us. I think this is great.
It's the idea of having essentially a personal assistant who's looking and saying, this one looks important, this one doesn't look as important. And then the one that made me laugh is the one where it was a group thread where it did like a summary of what was going on in the group thread. It's like 20 messages about somebody got a dog, and you're like, okay, I can read that later, right? Like that's why that one's popping off, and that's just fine. That's just fine.
We mentioned Mail earlier, so Mail will also be using Apple Intelligence to highlight priority messages. I guess this is trying to within, say, like in your like the primary group, which is like of people you'd assume, or like the things that it thinks are important to you. It will then try to highlight the messages within that group and push them up to the top. So it's like a second filter on top of those filters, I would assume. It will, and I love this feature of it will instead of in an email just seeing like the first line or two of the email, it will show a summary there instead.
That is good.
That's
I like
a fantastic
that. That's a really good
feature.
use.
It's one of those things where I'm like, oh yeah, that like preview is pointless because it's always just like hi, like it's not actually really that helpful. And also, kind of neither is a subject line. Like this is actually, I think, a better way of showing me what's inside of an email message, which I think is good. If you get a really long message, TLDR of that, fantastic. You kidding me? Brilliant. And then I really like the ways they're doing smart replies. So I've seen this in other applications where it tries to basically like draft emails for you, but it should try and scan an email and then ask you questions to help make that reply better, which is cool.
Right. The idea there is, and they did show this in the video, but it's the idea that, essentially you're being asked to fill out a form, but you're doing it in an email. And it scans it and says, look, this is what you're being asked is, are you bringing your partner and, chicken or beef or vegetarian option, right? You're like, okay. And you just pick them and it makes a thing that says, hey, thanks, here's my answers, done. And you send it off. And that seems not unreasonable.
You mentioned audio transcripts earlier. They're going to be in the Notes and the Phone app. So we could be on the phone call for someone and it can transcribe the call for you, which is cool. I think it says, I think they said that they let the person on the phone know that that's happening.
Yes, it's disclosed that a transcript is happening, that you're recording essentially the phone call. Yeah.
Image generation is being done in a bunch of ways. Image Playground, which is both an app and a feature, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so
I'm suppressing my feelings, Myke. I'm suppressing them.
Oh, I have lots of feelings about it too. So we will allow those feelings to escape soon. This is essentially, for what I could understand, and I assume you may have seen this, it will create images based on some prompts that you give and that you adjust the style. And it can also allow you to use people in your photo library as the prompt. Is that is that correct?
I would say it's even more simplified than that, where you can give a prompt, but what it seems to do is break it up into some particular tags. Or you can select from a bunch of tags and it will generate images for you. So there are real guardrails on this. Like the Apple really limits you in style and it tries to atomize what you do if you do a text prompt into little bits, but it gives you a picker so you can just sort of pick things. I think because they believe that people who use generative AI image stuff, one of the problems is building a prompt. And so they tried to put a whole UI on it where they limit because it's their engine again, what their engine is capable of and what they want it to do and what it's good at. So they're trying to put this whole interface where you can like swipe around and say, here's a superhero cape is like literally a choice, and you choose a picture of somebody in your photo library, and you choose, something else, and then it shows them all and it generates it, and you can say, no, not like that, or give me an alternate one, and you swipe, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. But while you can do a freeform, even the freeform seems like it kind of gets exploded into individual concepts, which you can then remove if you don't like them. So it's going to be, we're all going to need to see how this works in practice, but it seems like they're trying to, solve the problem of how do you generate images via AI without having it be the old command line approach, which isn't that great. And they're trying to do it in a different way that's tuned to their particular image generation model.
Yeah, I guess they're using what you're giving to write the prompts behind the scene, basically, right? Like the prompt engineering is happening behind the UI.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not making you program this feature, right? They programmed a UI on top of this feature that you use.
Genmoji. Hi, I'm Jen.
We need another name, right?
This
we need
is my
another
emoji.
name.
This just doesn't need a name like this.
It doesn't.
Really. So you can describe what you want an emoji to look like. This will also allow you to create kind of like personalized memoji, again, of you or of people in your photo library. These can be used as stickers, but also in line in text messages as emoji.
Right. I mean,
do you know how
it's
they're
not
doing this?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really.
Okay.
It's really an image that's being sent, but they've worked it out in iMessage so that it shows as an emoji.
Right.
It's styled like an emoji, and it's the right
Slack
size
does.
of being an emoji.
This is like Slack custom emoji and Discord custom emoji, right? They're
exactly,
like these tiny
but
images.
it's not.
And they look
It's
like
an
emojis.
image
that
looks like an emoji. That's exactly what it is. So that's what's going on here. And I don't love the name, but I really like this feature because to me, it's like, oh, you build an image generator based on what emoji look like. And then it will use your prompts, also the context of the conversation you're having, to suggest emojis that you can send. And I like it. This whole category is Apple. I feel like this is the impulse that caused us to have Memoji and digital touch, maybe. It's this, hey, things are fun, right, everybody? This is fun. We're having fun on our phones, kids. It's great. And sometimes those impulses are mistaken. But I think the Genmoji stuff, I kind of like it. I kind of like how constrained it is, where it's like, look, all we're doing is our model knows what emojis look like.
Yeah.
And then we can make more of them. And they look like emojis, but you don't have to go into Photoshop and build a whole like custom emoji and upload it to Slack and all of that. It just happens, and you pick it, and then they get it, and we all have a good laugh because now you're able to make an emoji that doesn't exist. And I think, in contrast to Image Playground, I really like this feature because it is very specific and constrained and solves a problem, and they can be used in those emoji tapbacks. And I like it. I think this is exactly the right amount of fun that Apple should be doing.
Well, I agree with you there, basically entirely. If it always looked like emoji, like there was some of the emoji that they were showing in the keynote just didn't look like Apple's emoji style. Like there was I think a dinosaur on a skateboard or something.
Yeah, it looked close to it, but you're right. I think that's the danger of it, is you end up with something that does not look like an emoji.
And it just looked like a little AI generated image that was tiny. But then they would show one where it was like, oh, here is like our emoji face with cucumbers over its eyes. And it's like, yeah, no, that looks right.
So that's my
yeah.
question. I think, and the funny thing is, these models are like, they can swap out models. So they may show us stuff now, and over the course of the beta process and ongoing development, they're like, they may tweak it and say, no, it really needs to be much more on what emojis look like, or not. But I would like it if it looked like these are emojis from an alternate world where the Unicode Consortium got very strangely specific about something that it didn't in real life. That's what I would like them to look like.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then image wand using the Apple Pencil. So you could draw something with your Apple Pencil, and then you circle it with the image wand, and it takes what you've drawn as the basis for creating an AI image. This is similar to, I think, what Microsoft just showed off with Paint. Is you would draw something, and then Paint would make
you make a sketch, and it scans it essentially, and its model turns it into an image of what it thinks based on not just the image but the context around it, right? The text around it and all of that, and then it does a generation. And this is I think that I get what their impulse is here. I think it feels a little less successful, but I get what they're trying to do.
So imagine the largest pin possible. We're putting that pin in this, and we'll come back to it.
Yep.
Huge pin is in it. And later on, we'll both work together to take
feelings
that
to be
pin
determined
because the pin is so big.
Yep.
So we already mentioned these, but Photos has a cleanup tool, which is essentially Magic Eraser, and the ability to make memory movies based on a prompt, which I really like, right? Like, make a movie for me on the trip that me and Adina took last October, right? Yes, like, that's great. Rather than me going through and choosing it, at least give me a starting point. Like, I think that this is a nice way to take out some of the tedium of putting something like that together.
Exactly. No, that's good. It's a good use. It does make me think, I'm surprised that there are no features like this in music, where it would be a really good way to make playlists.
Great point. Yeah, why is there no music playlist generation?
But it's not. So that's a bummer, but it's here. And yeah, that cleanup tool, again, I want to applaud that they did it. I also want to boo because they should have had that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, this technology is not new. They should have had that 5 years ago. I think the reason they didn't is probably because somebody inside the Photos team or in charge of the Photos team was like, no, we're going to preserve the sanctity of blah, blah, blah. But like, it's what your users want. It's a good thing to do. You don't have to do it in an evil way. You just, let me clean up, and it's like, it'll detect, but you can also just circle or mark over what you want to remove, and it will do the job exactly as you expect, which is great. And I have to come back to, there's not even been a touch-up tool on iOS before in Photos. So this is, we'll see how it works in practice, but finally, I guess, is all I can say about it. Finally.
All right, Siri, our friend. I have just a HomePod fire off behind me, which I was expecting.
Of course.
It looks new. So the UI has now changed from the glowing orb to highlighting the edge of your phone with a kind of multicolor glow, which I really like the look of that. You can also type to Siri now by double tapping the bottom of your screen, and so anything you can ask, you can now type. This now like type to Siri has been a thing they've had on and off over the years. Sometimes as accessibility, sometimes as more of a feature. This feels like a time where maybe you would want it more than you ever needed it before, right? In that way, because we're now more used to typing to these types of assistants and chatbots. Siri can give you advice on device features, which I think is cute. Suck the manuals into Siri and spit them back out at users. Like, why not?
That's a good idea. I think that's a really great, let's use this system to help people directly when they say, how do I do this? And be able to give them actual actionable answers of that. That's great. Like, if that works, that's great.
I'm just shouting at my HomePods behind me. This is something that would be a treat for anybody that watches the video version of the show. They'll just see me turning around and shouting at my HomePod. So I'm trying my best over here. I'm going to give you a quote from Apple's kind of Apple Intelligence page. Richer language understanding and an enhanced voice make communicating with Siri even more natural. Have you experienced anybody communicating with Siri? Because I didn't get this vibe from the keynote, really.
No. That's not something they want to show. I had several demos. I have never seen somebody interact with Siri speaking.
Because I was really struck by that in the keynote, that the presenter kept asking and Siri just kept showing. And it's like, well, that's not my experience.
No.
Yeah, it was.
No.
Yeah.
No, they're clearly unwilling to show that right now, so it probably doesn't work.
And then there are these three things that go together, I think. On-screen awareness, so you can ask your assistant to do things that you can see and it will do it, like send this to Jason, add this address to Jason's contact.
Right.
There is personal context awareness, so your assistant, I'm trying to stop saying it now, will know things that are on your device. So you could be like, oh, I saw that Jason sent me an episode of ATP recently. Can you find what one that was? And it should be able to go find it. And also to be able to take actions across apps. So you could say, like, can you take this, turn it into a PDF, and send it to Jason in Slack, in theory. And this uses a combination of Intents and SiriKit. I'm expecting, or maybe hoping, you've seen some of this stuff in action.
Yeah, I mean a little bit. It's this is stuff that's not going to ship anytime soon.
Yeah, this is all next
year. They're working on it,
most likely. These things.
What I want to do is explain a little bit about how it works. So they have this semantic index, which is basically like it's like a search engine index. It's pointing at where all the stuff is in your device. It's cataloged, but it's not that content, it's the pointer to it, but it allows you to search it quickly. So the semantic index is there, and it's encrypted, and it's only accessible by intelligence, by the Apple Intelligence stuff. So they've tried to wall it off. Like it's not, it is a map of everything that you've got on that device in terms of content, but they only want the AI system itself to have access to it. So there's some security considerations there. And then what happens is something, and it may be another model, basically decides what relevant content is in the semantic index and then passes that to the model for analysis. And that might be a non-device model, or it might be a remote model. And then it processes it and gives you the results. So there's a bunch of stuff going on here, but they are trying to build with the semantic index something that is essentially an index to the complete set of knowledge about what is knowable about you based on what's on any given device. And I should also say, for those who are wondering, is this like everything that's knowable about me in Apple's entire ecosystem on all my devices? The answer is kind of no, because like with photos, the model is running and the index is being generated based on the contents of your device, which is why, for example, when you do a search on your iPad and your iPhone for something in photos, you don't always get the same results because those items are cataloged by a machine learning model individually. They don't, like, it doesn't happen once and then all the data gets synced among your devices. It happens on device. And the way that the phrase on device, it sounds good, right? But it cuts the other way, which is on device. It's not on your devices. It's not your personal data. It's on a device, which means if you're thinking, well, does that mean that every Apple device I have is going to be doing its own churning away on my data store in order to build a semantic index? So I'm going to have a different semantic index on the iPad than the Mac, than the iPhone. The answer is yes, which technically it may be necessary to do that because Apple, because to distribute machine learning stuff across devices may be really impractical, but it's also like it's wasteful of computing power, right? If you've ever gotten a new iPhone and had it chunk through your photos library and you're thinking, but my iPad's got the whole library and my Mac's got the whole library, why are you processing it again? And the answer is because it has to. And there are things that sync that are like things that you prefer, or things that you've favorited, or things that you've trained, and presumably some of that will also come across with some of these Apple Intelligence features, but it's just something else to keep in mind, that on device means on a device, for better or for worse. But they are trying very hard to have the privacy and security issue thought of where the semantic index exists, but it's encrypted and only the AI process has access to decrypt it. And so we'll have to, there's a white paper about this. There's going to be a lot more technical detail, but this is not something that Apple just kind of came up with in the last month. There's a lot going on here.
And it does seem like, at least to start with, the types of apps and things that can happen are actually going to be somewhat limited for the intents part of it.
Yeah, it feels very much, app intents have existed for a while, but for like shortcuts, and people don't support them. And there are a few places in here where Apple has done a very much like a carrot and stick thing where they're like, all right, would you like Siri to do things with your app for the user? Well, that'll only work if you give us app intents, so you better write some app intents. Otherwise, your app is not going to get used by the system, and therefore is going to be less helpful to your users. So do it, right? And maybe that will cause more of them to build these app intents, which are essentially kind of quantizing functionality in their app and handing it to the system and say, these are things my app can do if you ask. And that allows the new model to run and the new Siri to run and say, oh, okay, you want me to do this with this thing, I can do that. And they gave an example of like an email with Superhuman, but the idea there is like, it doesn't have to be Apple Mail. It could be a different email app. And if it's got the right intents and it's got everything worked, it can do that too. It knows that if that's your email client, it'll use that one. And it's got the ability to look at the intents and et cetera, et cetera. So there's they're using some technology that they already built, and app intents shortcuts is part of the Siri team. This is all already Siri stuff, and make it like even more reason to do this.
And it seems like the on-screen stuff, is it UI scripting? Is that what it's doing? Maybe it's hard to know.
It's not. I've seen no examples of it pressing anything or controlling anything. It's looking at the screen
and doing things.
So the model is able to look at the screen, but I don't see it like clicking buttons or things like that. It's using things like app intents to make those controls happen.
Okay.
It's not driving the screen. It sees the screen, but it's not driving the screen.
But it can't Like if Slack hadn't enabled it, it can't be like send this to Jason in Slack even if I have Slack open. It's going to be interesting to see how this rolls out.
So Slack would need, if Slack's got an app intent to send a message and the ability to specify who the person is that can be read, like it would be able to do it. But that's the kind of stuff that's going to be required. At least in this iteration, I don't think there's any support for the idea that it's going to be able to just sort of like know what buttons to click in Slack. That's not what's going on here.
Okay. Okay. Privacy. So on device is how the majority of this stuff is going to be done. But when something is complex, I don't know if you have more examples of what those things might be, but if something is complex, it goes out to the cloud. It goes out to Apple's own cloud, and they have built a system called Private Cloud Compute. This is Apple's hardware. They built their own servers using Apple Silicon. When you're going out to the cloud, only the relevant data is sent and is not stored. And Apple they're going to be using a system called Verifiable Privacy Promise, where they can have outside investigators, essentially.
So the way this works, there are certain tasks, and it will determine it, right? You will say, I wanted to do this thing, and it will determine whether it's in the cloud or not. I asked, by the way, there is not currently anything that is hardware gating on whether it goes in the cloud or not.
Okay.
So it's not like if it's an M1, some stuff that the M2 and the M3 and the M4 can handle, but the M1 will send it to the cloud. That's not how it's built today. All the devices will make those judgments, and it's independent of the hardware. There might come a time down the road where there's like an M6 and there's a new function, and the M6 can run it on device and the M1 can't, and then it might do that. But that's not the case today.
And essentially, it was best for Apple if they never need to talk about that, right?
Exactly. And the rest of the system is built that way. You are not told whether it's going to the cloud or not.
Right.
That's just not part of the conversation. Some of it is and some of it isn't.
Don't have an internet connection, right?
Yes, and I'm
Yeah.
unclear what happens if you don't have an internet connection, if it's functional, or if like a lot of the intelligence stuff just drops, even if it is local, right? I mean, we don't know how that's going to go. In terms of private cloud compute, these are servers that are running in Apple's data centers, not in other people's data centers. They are servers built by Apple. They are running on Apple Silicon chips. They would not specify what the chips are. My guess is going to be that they're M1 or M2 generation, probably M2 generation, because that 3-nanometer process is real expensive. And so that's my guess, but I don't know.
Do you think they built a custom chip?
Mark Gurman, so they wouldn't say. Mark Gurman says that they are working on a custom chip. I think he said that at some point.
Right.
My guess is that it's not now, just because I feel like we would know if they had built a custom version. I do wonder, is it binned M2s that they only really care about the GPUs and
the neural cores, maybe,
nobody.
right?
They're not talking about it. But what I will say is they have built a hardened subsystem version of iOS, essentially, that is running on these servers.
Okay.
So it's very secure. They have no persistent storage. So Apple, it's end-to-end encrypted, and Apple has no way to get the data that's on them. So basically, and they're auditable by outside security researchers. So Apple is basically saying, we have built a system that makes sending your AI queries to the cloud secure, like it's on your device. And everybody's going to have to process that, and everybody's going to have to think about it. But I think this sounds pretty legit. This is what they've decided to build.
I feel like this is as safe as it could possibly be. Like, for me, maybe I'm being gullible, I don't know. But like when I hear that, I'm like, yeah, of course that's what they're doing. Like I don't know what you feel, but I have absolutely zero qualm with everything they've spoken about when it comes to data privacy and AI processing.
Yeah, I think this is we will see, right? I mean, the beauty of it is that it will be verifiable by experts. They're basically saying, we want people to look at this. There will be security bounties. We are putting all of this out there, but I don't know what you do beyond it's our cloud, it's our hardware, it's our operating system. And, I can see the argument, and we see this in the chat room, of like, I want to know if it's going out there and be able to turn that off. Like, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's necessary, because part of me thinks you are asking for a level of control that maybe you yourself don't understand what's involved.
Yeah, it's like,
just to make yourself feel better.
Do you send
and I'm not sure that's good
iMessages?
enough.
Like, where do you think they go? Like,
Exactly. So this is, I think Apple's done everything they could. We'll see if security experts have issues and if they pick this apart. But they basically tried to build a thing that is entirely their software, their hardware, their servers, and built in a way where they can't look at it.
Yeah.
So the whole point here is AI does not functionally have to be insecure, data harvesting, all of these things.
Yeah.
It is because a lot of companies hurried into the space and didn't care. And it might even be convenient for them to have all of your data. But Apple entered this process knowing they couldn't do that. So they built something different. And, we'll see. On its face, this seems like a great approach to this sort of thing. But we'll see how the reaction plays out.
So all of these features are available on M1 Max and up, and the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max only.
Yep.
And it is being said, I don't know if Apple have said this, but I've seen it said now, that it seems to be RAM is the cutoff here. And it's like 8 gigabytes of RAM appears to be the minimum amount of RAM for a device. And Apple Silicon, and like an Apple Silicon chip.
Maybe so. Yeah, right. But I think the simplest way to do it is think if it's an M series chip, it's supported. And if it is that one chip that is on the iPhone 15 Pro, it's supported. And that's it. So going forward, I assume most iPhones that are new will also support this, and all Apple Silicon Max and all
iPhones.
But that is your
all
question.
All the iPhone 16s will, for sure.
Yeah, but do I get this on my device? It's like, well, if you have an iPad or a Mac and it's an M series, you're good. And if you've got an iPhone 15 Pro, you're good. That's it. Period. That's where they've drawn the line. That's all it's ever going to do.
Pour one out for the iPad mini.
Yep.
If you want to know if the iPad mini is going to get a new chip in it, there you go. I don't think it will get an M chip. I actually think it will just get the whatever the next
The iPhone 16 chip.
Yeah, I think it will
Yeah,
get that.
maybe so.
Like, what is that, the A18 or something?
Yeah.
I reckon it will probably just get that. And I think they will continue doing that because the iPad mini should never use Stage Manager. And if you put an M chip in it, technically, it would then use Stage Manager because of the way that Apple's kind of written themselves into that box. These features are on all kinds of time scales that we don't know. All we know is that some version of Apple Intelligence stuff will be in beta in US English this summer. Features will start shipping in the fall, with some features rolling out over the next year. But it's not US only. You just have to have your device language and Siri language on US English, and you can just get it straight away.
To start, right? And then they'll roll it out. Like, the question is, when does this ship? And the answer is, when doesn't it ship? Because I think this is going to be an endless shipping. I think
except today. We don't have it today, but it could be any time from now and then always.
And then always. I think that's really legitimately what's going to happen is that, next year we'll get to WWDC and they'll say, oh, here's some new Apple Intelligence features coming over the next year. And I think it's going to be like that for quite a while, that they're just going to keep, and they can afford to do that. And right now they have to, because some of this stuff is so not there that they couldn't even show it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that's like next year. But I'm okay with that because basically what they're saying is, here's our goal for the next year. And then we'll see you back here at WWDC when hopefully we've accomplished all these and we'll tell you what our next year goal is. That's fine. But in this case, this stuff is moving so fast that, a bunch of the stuff just doesn't even exist. And they're like, next year. We can't even show it to you. Trust us. See you next year. Right? And it's like, okay. All right.
So we draw a line and now we talk about ChatGPT. So.
Yes.
Apple refers to what ChatGPT does as world knowledge rather than your knowledge. Which I actually think is as a way to delineate is good, right? Like,
it's trying to help you
with everything on your device, and that's about you. But if you want to know something that is out on the internet,
and we don't have it.
ChatGPT is for. Yeah.
Because Siri does have data sources that Siri has always used and it will continue to use in this new world. And I think that's good, right? Like, if they can wire up some really good data sources, they'll use that. But if they come to the end of the road where they're like, oh, we don't know. Because, like, you can ask, when do the Giants play next? And it'll tell you, right? You can ask about baseball statistics and there's a whole bunch of stuff you can ask Siri even now, and it works. And that's all still going to be there. But there does come that point, and I know you and I talked about this a week or two ago, where it goes, I found something on the web for you. I don't know. And at that point, there will be an opportunity to kick it out to a different source. And I want to be clear, they announced ChatGPT, but when they are talking about this afterward with the press, what they've said is this is a modular system. Mm-hmm. Other chatbot type things can be added later. There are some interesting potential chatbots in specific areas of domain knowledge that Apple may not have expertise in, because Apple is not trying to eat the world and consume all world knowledge, and that they may add those. And then other things like Google Gemini, sure, they may be in the mix too. If this sounds a little bit like a modular sort of search engine kind of deal, it kind of is. Like,
well, I mean, it's kind of like when they added Wolfram Alpha to Siri.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm like, over
also
time,
a search.
They added these, like, I mean, I know it's different, but like they added these like bits where it could query, right? Like, we can go get that from here, we get this from Wikipedia, get this from here,
This has got to be the least exciting partnership announcement ever, though, right? Because it's like, hey, ChatGPT is the best, which they said. It's like, but there will be others. And here's a disclaimer at the bottom that says everything ChatGPT says may be full of garbage, and don't trust it.
And it tells you every time, right? Like, hey, do you want to go to ChatGPT for this?
The whole thing, like, the workflow is like, if you say something that trigger for and it ships off by default. Let's just say that. Like they didn't mention that on the video, right? It's so clearly a sign that Apple wants people to say yeah, ChatGPT, yeah. And it sounds like they got a pretty good deal with ChatGPT and with OpenAI. Like basic requests are free. You can log in as a ChatGPT subscriber and get some extra features and be in the history and all that. But by default, even if you turn it on, you don't pay anything. I assume Apple's paying them something, but like the users don't pay for it. And it's so off by default. You don't pay. It can't. They're using routing. They're using like it's kind of like the internet private routing kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So ChatGPT doesn't know your IP address, so they don't know who you are. Legally, they can't retain any of the data that is sent, and they Apple pointed that out definitively to me. Legally, they cannot. So this is like Apple has locked them up to like you can't use the data, you can't track the people, you can't see the IP address. So they put all these limitations on OpenAI, but OpenAI is still like, yeah, but we want to make a deal with Apple because their big competitor is Google and that's Android, and so they can't do that. So here's an option. But from Apple's perspective, it's like it's turned off. It's got warning labels on it. We're going to have other partners too. But hey, OpenAI is the best right now. And then all of the other caveats about it's for world knowledge. And like it is an integration that some people might like and that I think the business world and the tech world kind of wanted Apple to do, but it's couched in a way where very clearly it is the most like, this is the 10-foot pole kind of like, please welcome our special guest. And then you never see them and they never get mentioned again. That's what was going on with OpenAI.
It's ChatGPT 4.0 is what Craig said on stage. Right? Well, yeah. On stage during the keynote. Yep. For something I would wonder is like if you sign in with your ChatGPT account, I don't think they need to ask you every time. Like I feel like that to me is like an implicit. Right.
I think that may be the case. I'm unclear about that, but I think that may be the case. That once you're logged in and you're like, no, I'm a ChatGPT subscriber, that it all just is.
You've made
there,
that decision
but
about
certainly
your own life at that point, you know.
Exactly, but by default, every query that might possibly go to ChatGPT, it's going to say, "Do you want to do this?" And you can say no. And if you try to upload, like it needs an image or a file or something, you have to say, "Yes, I am okay with sending them the file." Now, legally, they have to throw that file away, but it doesn't matter. You still have to ask. So there was a lot of hand wringing about, "Oh, ChatGPT is terrible," and it's like, well, it's off by default, and nobody has to use it. It's warning labeled. And it's like, well, why did they even put it in there? It's like, you know what? Some people find it useful. And if you find it useful, it's there.
And also, I think you made a really good point of like, try not to think of this too much as they built this feature for OpenAI. Like, they built this feature like so that Apple Intelligence can query other large language models.
Exactly. And I
more
think
of those
an example,
even specialized ones could come in the future that it will actually make a lot of sense.
So here's an example that was sort of suggested to me by somebody at Apple, which is, what if there's an LLM that has been trained on medical information, right? What if there is some medical bot that has been trained by some esteemed medical institution, and they're like, oh, yeah, this is actually pretty good. It's way better than general knowledge in terms of finding out information about, I don't know what, illness, medications, whatever. Let's just say, right? It could be anything. Mm-hmm. It could be another technical topic. You could put that, Apple could theoretically add that to the list, and then your on-device analyst would say, oh, that seems like a question for medical bot. Would you like me to ask medical bot? And then it goes to the medical bot, right? I think that's their vision here Apple is really focused, at least for now, on not consuming the world and building an overarching world knowledge model, on focusing on people on their devices and what they know on the devices, and the fact that they make phones and tablets and computers, and it's a part that they can do really well, but having the ability to go outside that to other places. And part of that is because they don't have any of those other things. And that's probably true. And maybe they do want to do that eventually, or maybe they don't. I don't know. I think the jury's still out on general applicability and trust of those things. But I think that's Apple's vision, is like, beyond this point, we're going to have the ability to, in the long run, point you in the direction of some other data source that might be able to help you with that if you want them to. And if you don't, then it doesn't happen.